Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey guys, it's John Davis, and I am here once again with the lovely Tamara Zoner. Hello, Tamara Zoner. How are you?
Hi, John. I'm feeling just fine now. How are you?
Good. It seems like I haven't seen you in so long.
I know it's been a while since we talked last.
Yes, it's crazy. Tamara, have you ever felt like you've been here before?
That feels like a loaded question right now. So are we saying deja vu experiences, John, or been here before?
Been here before.
Yes, John. Yes, I have.
Yes. So today we're talking about what is it again?
We are talking about reincarnation today.
Oh, I was curious.
Yeah, not deja vu, although that might come with it.
Right.
But reincarnation, and I would love to hear if you believe in reincarnation, John Davis.
Well, if anybody's ever listened to the other episodes that was about my life, you know that I believe in reincarnation. I've had a lot of experiences in my life that have not only shown that very clearly that we reincarnate, but and we'll delve into that today. I'm not gonna delve into the one big name that everyone wants me to talk about for very specific reasons. Let me just say, clear this up right now. The reason I don't talk about the name in my past life experiences is because when I did talk about the name, people would stop hearing the message that I was trying to tell, and they would focus on, the the messenger rather than the message. And so I don't want to say the name because I think the message is far more important. So let's talk about reincarnation from that aspect. I'm going to back up a little bit. So I have, in my entire life, I have always had several different things in my life that just make no sense. And don't we all? But, when I was a kid, I had a tremendous passion for 1950s music. And I was a little kid. I was passionate. And when I finally did become a singer, I was singing songs that always came from before I was born. I was singing in the 50s and the 40s and I was singing all that. So that's an interesting thing. Why would this young kid have that kind of music in his head? By the way, it made my day when I heard my son singing a 1940s song the other day.
Right. And I love that. And I'll just pop in with the fact that was also one of my experiences. I was in love with Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald, and my parents didn't even listen to that kind of music. I don't know. So I couldn't say where I'd heard of it from. And then when I was in 6th grade, I was completely obsessed with Elvis Presley. And I never really went beyond that in music. It was all like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. That was the music that I loved. And still today, also a singer, I love singing Ella Fitzgerald, anything by Cole Porter. That's the music that I love singing. And I am quite certain that I was a lounge singer during that time.
Yeah. Which is great. The actual song from Spirit Cafe is it's a lounge song. It's actually was specifically a lounge song.
I like it so much. I'm always jamming while
I dig it. I think it's cool. The interest, that there's that. We both had that experience, which I think is fascinating. That you and I both had that experience.
I do too. Another weird synchronicity.
And I went on to sing in bars, and I sang like all the Drifters and the Platters and all those. That was because I was singing with 4 or 5 guys, right? And we were going in and doing full a cappella. And so I had this real big passion for that older music, and that just didn't make any sense. As I got older, I got really, and I remember in my youth playing with my G.I. Joes and specifically reenacting historical events that I should have known nothing about.
Oh, wow.
And I remember my mom was aghast when she saw my crucified GI Joe. I mean, she was completely aghast by that one. And then when I started doing Renaissance festivals, which was very interesting. I I started doing Renaissance festivals, but I was never drawn to the period they were doing Henry VIII,
Mm-hmm.
and or sometimes it was a medieval fair. I
Okay.
was never drawn to those periods, but I was massively drawn to the Elizabethan period. So my costumes always looked like an Elizabethan gentleman rather than a Tudor period or
Mm.
earlier. So I was always, everything I always did was always around at Renaissance festivals was always around that Elizabethan period. So I really think I had a connection to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Later on in my life, I started having psychics tell me about a specific past life I had, and I had in total it was 19 total, but it was right
Wow.
around the year it was late 90s, and being a good Catholic boy, I was like, no way, psychics, no way, this is bad. And so I went and I found a past life regression therapist, and I had a full blown past life regression to that life. And when I say the experience of that was very visceral, it was actually as if I was standing there, breathing the air, feeling the sun on my back, and it. I left there with a very profound understanding that I had done that. And then when I finally did my travels through places like Jordan and Israel and Greece, and I went to Petra, which is famous for Indiana Jones finding the Holy Grail there. um, um, but I got to Petra, that armory, that building that's in that film. I came out of that crescent pathway that you will go up to it, and I was looking around. I looked up, and I suddenly had this pure blown vision of being on top of one of those pillars carving it. And I knew that I had done that. And it was so strange to me. It went against everything I believed as a Catholic. But that was my experience. Now we'll get into a little bit more of that and the beliefs behind that. But have you just besides singing, you had any other experience?
I did actually I've only had a vision once. I've had some knowings where, for instance, when I was very young, as soon as I knew of Halloween, for about 5 years straight, from probably 2 or 3 until 7 or 8 years old, I insisted on being a gypsy. Who knew what a gypsy was at 2 years old? I don't know how I did, but I would dig through my mom's jewelry box, find all these fun beads and shiny jewelry and put them on. I would put things in my hair. I would find shawls and loose skirts and dresses, and I was a gypsy every year. And when I looked back on it later, I thought, I definitely must have been a gypsy at some point. That kind of free spirit, roaming, ranging, lots of theater in a gypsy's life, right? Which would explain my love of it. And then I had another experience in Norway. I was there for my certification for the passion test and was rooming with my new friend Miriam. And after one of our 12-hour training days, we went back to our hotel room and chilled out with some meditation. And during that meditation, I had this very clear vision of her and I as Buddhist monks on a Tibetan hill. And it was so stunning, and it felt so real. And after we came out of the meditation, I told her, I was like, this is why we feel so close so quickly, is we have traveled together before. We've done this before.
Yeah, no, I had the same experience on the Giza Plateau. I was traveling with a friend named Michael, and we sat down on a rock, and we're just sitting there, we're meditating. We'd had a very big experience the day before, and we went back out there just to kind of settle our minds and settle our heads around what we had just experienced. And sitting there on this rock, and I saw myself sitting there next to him on that same rock, but wearing this long flowing robe that was gold and black striped. And you never see them in full robes. You always see them in like loincloths or whatever
Mm-hmm.
in the hieroglyphics. But it was the two of us in full flowing robes, and we had that big pointy helmet that you always see in a lot of the Egyptian art. And it was the two of us there, and we were dark skinned. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we were full lipped, so we had a very more of an African look to us, and very thin featured, which was very interesting. And we knew I knew that we were both like priests. That's for lack of a better
Okay.
term, and that we had lived that life together in that life, and it was very visceral and real, and right then and
Mm-hmm.
there. Now, it's just so, just to be very clear. You we talked in another episode about Tamara, making sure she wasn't going to be an addict. I have never done drugs in my life. I've never even smoked pot. I didn't.
So this was not a drug-induced experience, is what you're
No,
saying.
no. I didn't drink alcohol till I was 21, and then I drank off and on, and then I stopped drinking a couple of years, about 5 years ago now, just because I just didn't feel the need for it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally I might have a little bit of wine, but I don't drink at all. But it had my experiences were yes, not drug induced. So let's talk about spirit. Let's talk about reincarnation in religion.
Yeah, let's.
Okay.
So tell us first which religions believe in reincarnation.
Well, of course, Buddhism does. The Dalai
Mm-hmm.
Lama is the reincarnation of the last Dalai Lama.
Correct. Yeah.
Hinduism has a cyclical return, which is based on what looks like a wagon wheel, which
Okay.
basically your center present moment consciousness is the hub of the wheel, and each spoke coming off is a different life that you've lived, and the outer rim of the wheel is the super consciousness where you have awareness of all.
Oh,
Um,
okay. That's cool.
so that's really kind of an interesting thing. Um, uh, Judaism believes that you live lives over until you get it right.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you're, oh no, you weren't good enough to get it this time. Go back.
Do over.
Yeah, do over, right? Um, Christianity, they say no, and the interesting thing is until 325, when Constantine did his big villainous act on the Christian faith,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
he he literally took any idea of not getting it right here and now off the table. And I truly believe the apostles and Jesus both believed in reincarnation, and I can prove it from the words in the Bible, actually.
Okay. Ooh,
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the disciples were all enthralled by this Jesus fellow, and they actually said, and he said to them one day, "Who do they say that I am?" And the apostles' response was, "Some say you are Elijah returned." And Jesus, well, for the apostles to say that, first of all, they had to believe that not only could Elijah return, but he could
Mm-hmm.
return as Jesus of Nazareth. So
Okay.
that's very, but Jesus' response was very interesting. He said, "No, I tell you, he has returned already, and you have shunned him." And the apostles knew he was talking about John the Baptist. So Jesus believed that not only could Elijah return, but he could return as John the Baptist.
Okay.
And so that's, I mean, to me, that's a very clear reincarnation, because not only are they coming back, but they're coming back as somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one where the disciples saw a man who was born blind, and they said, Master, how, is he blind because of his parents' sin or his sin? And Jesus' response was, he is blind because of what he did before he came here. And
Ooh.
so he had to be able to do something before he came here,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I have a condition that we talk about spina bifida occulta, and I often wonder whether that's that lower back injury, that thing that happened to me, that I was born with,
Mm-hmm.
whether it happened to me as a back injury in another life. I often wonder that.
Mm.
Often wonder that.
That's a
So
really interesting question. Because I have had moments where, I don't like to wear turtlenecks or
ooh,
anything that's high up on my neck. And
me neither. Me neither. What the heck? It's so weird. I'm always like grabbing it and pulling it away from my throat.
I can't stand anything around my neck aside from
Oh
that
my
phase in
God.
the 90s where I wore a lot of chokers, but that was the fashion. But so I, at some point, said, probably to a friend who was near me, I don't know who it was, like, I think I probably was strangled in a past life because I just cannot stand anything around my neck.
Mm.
So Christians say no to reincarnation. That's not a thing. What are there any other religions that completely denounce the possibility of reincarnation?
Islam doesn't necessarily believe in reincarnation, and they're very much about living a good life like the life of Muhammad here and now. There's a lot of religions in the world that are based on the idea that you got to get it right while you're here, and they don't like the idea of reincarnation because of the fact that you get a do-over.
They don't like that you get a second chance.
Right.
I fully believe that we do.
Yeah, and you think about it, like Constantine didn't want to do over because Constantine was literally trying to control the masses. The Christian faith was growing so big at the time that he needed to make sure they got it right here and now because of the idea that he didn't have control over that. And so it really comes down to that idea of control. That's reincarnation takes some of the control away from people. And so
certainly, because they can't then fear them into behaving the way they want them to, or paying those monies to the church. If they're going to get to come back, they're like, wow, never mind, I can mess up this life and have some fun. Right. So
exactly. And even Constantine himself was an interesting fellow, but Constantine, he put all these rules on Christianity, saying you have to get it right while you're here. But Constantine didn't get baptized till his deathbed. So he actually came to the Nicene Council dressed as the pagan sun god. He basically wanted to live the life of a pagan, toga, 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 and then go to a Christian heaven. So it was very interesting. The idea of heaven itself is an interesting animal as well. Now, let me just share you an interesting experience that I had that I don't know if I've ever told you before, but I think you're going to find it interesting. When I was really deep into my meditation and I was doing astral travel work, which I don't know if anyone's ever done that before. And when I was one of the first times I tried astral travel, I was literally actively consciously leaving my form, and as I was so weird to talk about, I'm actively consciously leaving my form, and suddenly I was standing in this pure white space. And when I say standing, I mean I was standing there in a pure white space, and this man was standing in front of me. He looked at me and he smiled. He says, "You're not supposed to be here yet." And these two women that were with him walked over and basically touched me, almost like they tickled me. And I woke up laughing where I was.
Oh, my goodness.
Right? But the concept of you're not supposed to be here yet. Now, the question is, I'm not supposed to be there yet in this life, or I haven't lived enough lives to do that.
I like that question.
Yeah,
I like that question so much because, being raised Catholic, even though I think we've both rejected a lot of the dogma, there's still this heaven idea, right? I still think angels and heaven exist in some way or another. And I've always also believed in reincarnation. And so in my mind, I think, okay, I've got to, you joked once that I was like competitive karma wise. I am really trying to get it right this time because I've had this notion that I've lived a bunch of lives before. This life feels like I'm being a really good human and I'm really getting a lot right. And I'm living this purpose to help inspire others to also get it right and find their joy and know that that's the actual purpose of life. And I also feel like maybe, it's going to sound so weird, especially if my mom's listening, that this might be my last go around for a little while, right? So I'm not going to reincarnate the next time right away. I'm going to go and be an angelic presence, not necessarily in heaven, but in some realm where I am able to be that whisper in the ear of other humans, that intuitive nudge and guide that, is one of the spirit guides, as people say, or one of the angels that watches over people, specific people.
I know, I completely understand that. And knowing you and having had the experience of being in your presence, absolutely. I'm like, oh, wow. There's a feeling there. Right.
Mm.
And I know that you live that life, and you walk through life with a very high vibration. For me, when I was going through my whole spiritual awakening, I knew, and this is just intuition. I knew that I was supposed to be here right now because of that vibration.
Mm.
And I was supposed to be here right now because I was needed to be here right now. So whether that means I'm done next time or not, I don't know. But I know that I am right where I'm supposed to be at any given time. And it's not, it's so funny. We talk about our beliefs. I want to make sure everyone knows that these are our beliefs. We don't expect you to believe anything. We expect you to find your own path. Spirituality is a journey within yourself, not within what somebody else believes. So if you really want to find these things that we're finding in our lives, then you need to go within and look for yourself, because you can't live vicariously spirituality. You've got to live real spirituality, because the spirit is within.
Beautiful, beautiful. So true. And I second that notion. We are just two recovered sometimes Catholics.
Well, doesn't that sometimes mean that we're actually in recovering rather?
Yeah.
Because
I go through phases where I feel fully recovered. I'm recovered, and then I'm like, well, wait, I'm still having, like, I still, I had this conversation with my mom the other day, and she talked about an experience. My parents were robbed at gunpoint when they had 3 out of the 4 of us as children. So we were in our bedrooms sleeping, and they had this gang of thieves that had been around the area at that time in the 70s. And she prayed, and she prayed to God to protect her children. And she felt this experience of peace wash over her. And she knew that at least the children would be safe. And as she was telling me this, and I totally believe in God, or the yada yada, as we said last time, I totally believe in this. I'm a very spiritual person. And still I felt my body sort of go into a contraction, a contracted state of like, oh, she's talking about God and religion, like, and so there is more work to be done. There's more, there is, I still am in recovery. Right. And this is part of that.
Me too.
So, for all those listeners who are also recovering from essentially the trauma of organized religion, we hear you, we're with you, and we're grateful that you're here listening to our conversations, and hopefully they're inspiring conversations of your own with the people who are around you and surrounding you.
And people who you've probably walked with before.
Yes. So I'd love to say, because I have had experiences with certain people in my life who I will know before I even meet them that they feel like a completion, like I was meant to meet them. And I obviously, it's pretty clear at this point that you and I have lived some lifetimes together. There are too many.
The turtleneck thing threw it over the top. That was the last straw.
Maybe we were musicians together in the 40s.
Wait,
who knows?
You know what's funny about the turtleneck thing is I actually wear mock tees sometimes for work. And like when I do these videos, you'll see me wearing the orange mock tee or the black mock tee. That gets put on just before the camera goes on.
Okay.
And it comes off right as the camera goes off. I just like the look of it, right? But I grab those things and I pull them away from my neck. Yeah. I don't like things on my neck. I hate that.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So we should end this thing. What do you think?
Okay. All right. Well, we'll do it again soon. Reincarnation joke.
Now, is it a joke if you have to explain it?
Somebody out there got it, John.
Okay, all right.
Please leave me a comment on Facebook and let me know you got that joke.
Yes, do that. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Tamara, for your time today.
Thank you, John. This is always fun.
All right. We will see you guys later. For comments and suggestions, please visit us on Facebook at Spirit Cafe Podcast. Also, find us on YouTube to watch the video of this podcast at Spirit Cafe Podcast. And finally, visit us at spiritcafepodcast.com.